Hello, I'm on my priest again today, but it doesn't really matter what I'm playing because I'm going to do some generic auras. Stuff that doesn't really matter what class you are. Mostly to demonstrate how you can recreate the sorts of things you probably did with power auras not too long ago. So let's start by bringing up the WeakAuras config. And I'm going to make an aura that shows when I'm low health. So this is something where you might have like the word danger pop up or something like that. And I'll first show what you can do with WeakAuras to recreate something you might have done in power auras. And then I'll show how you can do something unique and interesting that's sort of one of the one-off features of WeakAuras that you couldn't do in some of the other aura add-ons. So you can see there's a bunch of options here on the side, and traditionally I stick with icon because it's simple, square, it does what I want it to do. But there are a few others here: progress, texture, and texture. I'm going to start with texture, and this makes almost exactly what WeakAuras does. Gives you a picture. You can set some trigger options, and it appears when it's supposed to appear. So I'm going to give this one a name called, say, low health. And I could set some load restrictions, but I don't really think there's any point to that because this is the sort of thing that will work on any class. And I think I'll start by setting the display. So if I come to choose, you can see there's this whole list of Cataclysm spell alert things. So if you wanted to, you could recreate Blizzard's default spell aura display. Other options in here, there are icons that you're probably familiar with, especially if you're using something like WeakAuras. Simple shapes, runes, and the PvP emblems that you can use to make your flags and tabards and that sort of thing. The one I'm going to use is in the Power Auras section. They've been broken up to things like the heads-up displays. You'll probably recognize these. Or icons. Here's the skull that I used in my Heroic Nefarian video. The segmented options are all in here. And I think I'm going to come in and use words because there's one that is danger. That seems like something you'd probably want to say when you're low health. So there's pretty standard options. You can desaturate, which sucks out the color. Probably not something you can see on a white aura. You can click color and adjust its opacity here. Also tint it a bit. So we'll make this kind of a orange-red color. Something like that. And of course you can adjust the size. So I'll maybe make this quite large. Something like 330 by 330. You can see it's stretching these. And I'm just going to switch the anchor so that it'll grow from the top of the screen. So top to top. And I think that's actually pretty good. I'm just going to leave it like that. So there's a few other options. You can obviously rotate this if you wanted to. Mirror it to make it show the other way. Maybe if you wanted to make a two-part aura, one on either side of your screen, you could use the default one left and then check mirror and put it on the right side. And the blending mode. This is the same as choosing the glow checkbox in WeakAuras. So that looks alright. I'm going to give it a couple of simple animations. Maybe when it appears, I'll have it... What the heck, I'll just have it bounce. Preset. Fade out. And bounce. Something like that. So if you get low health, it'll fade in, start bouncing, and then fade out. And that's alright. So now I just need to set some trigger options. For the most part, we've stuck with aura as our trigger type. I'm going to switch that to status, which I think we've used once or twice. And you can see there's a whole pile of options, and the default one is health, which is exactly what we're looking for. And I'm just going to set health percent to less than or equal to, let's say something like 50. So now if I'm under 50% health, this aura will appear, and if I'm not, it'll disappear. Let's give it a shot. So if I just mount up and take some fall damage. Falling, punk. You can see I've got my danger text, and hopefully a healer would get me, but maybe I have to take care of myself. But as soon as I'm over 50%, it went away. So that worked pretty well. It's exactly like what you would have created in Power Auras to do something like that. But I'm going to convert this to use a model display. So one way I could do is to just come in here and choose model and set my trigger type. And that would work well enough. But another way you could do it is to just come into this aura, right click on it, choose convert to model. And so you can see by default it's Arthas standing there looking all badass, I guess. And under display, there's you can hit choose, and there's a whole pile of different options. Some of them work pretty well, like let's maybe look under creature. And well, let's try Akama. So you can click here and load him up. Not particularly useful. Some of them don't work quite right. They have no texture. There we go. You can see it's untextured. But they're still in there, and there's some useful stuff. There's also some items from the world. Doodads. So you might have to zoom in and out to see these properly, but there's some random items that you can load. The ones I like to go to are the spells option, the all caps version. And these are the graphics for spell effects. So here's an arcane missile, arcane explosion. Let me just scroll down, the lay on hands animation. So you can load these up as auras as if they were just simple textures, but you get the animation and the 3D effect, which is kind of cool. Which might make for seeing certain effects really easy. This is how I created the glowing fire at the bottom of my screen for threat, and the sort of waves of light coming up if I'm not in shadow form while I'm in combat. So for this, I think I'm just going to load up some sort of big, scary looking skull. And there's a lot of options here. I just happen to know that under shadow, something like shadow precast or something like that. Shadow missile, that'll do. So you can see it's quite small in the aura. And there's some 3D options here to set that. You can, for example, adjust Z, which makes it closer to the camera, but as it comes closer it moves down. Imagine you were holding a point and shoot camera up to your face. As you move forward, stuff that's in the middle of the screen will slowly drift down or up. So in this case it's moving down. But I can correct that just by dragging it back up here. I'm going to type in some settings like maybe 5.3, and this will probably want to be up near 2.4 maybe a little less, 2.3. There's also an animate option here, and you can step through the different animation sections. See, 0 has this spinning swirl behind it, 2 and 1 and 2 do not. It's sort of simpler. So I'll just leave that as is. I think that looks fine. And I think I'll leave pretty much everything else as is. Fade in, fade out. I'm going to switch bounce with maybe flip. Nah. Pulse. Oh, it kind of zooms in and out there. That doesn't look too bad. Or shake. I think I'm just going to actually turn this off and just leave it to something simple like none. So that'll fade in and fade out. And hopefully that'll get my attention if I'm low health. Let's give that a shot. So I can mount up, take some fall damage, and I get this skull to appear in the middle of my screen. And when I get back over 50% health, it goes away. So there's a number of different displays you could use, but that one seems to work well.